Rolling.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, something like that. All right, and welcome back to another exciting episode of A Distinguished Conversation. It's your host, Noah, and to the right of me is, as always, my co-host,
How's it going, folks?
Caleb. And then today we have a very special guest star, Mr. Zach Frazier.
I'm only a little special.
You're pretty special.
Thanks.
But yeah, so Mr. Frazier, the entire time that I've known him, he's just been Frazier, but one day I learned his first name was Zach, and I was like, oh, shoot, yeah, you probably have a first name, but...
You're going to out me to the public like that?
Something like that. I don't know.
Just
You're gonna be
a
on
little
the podcast. How else are we going to tell people find you on whatever social media platform? I don't know.
Oh, I switched my name on Facebook now, so it starts with Frazier, because
Oh, fair
everyone was
enough.
confused.
Nice.
It'd be that way sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not the, like, traditional spelling, but, like,
For Zach?
yeah.
Ah.
I mean, okay, well,
is-
it's not the one that, like, you think Zach and you think Z, but you have the
That's an
X in
artistic choice. It is
there.
traditional.
Whatever. Any hoozles. So, yeah. There's a couple different things. We're going to start doing ads. We finally got somebody to, what is the word? Put up with us and try us out for ads. So we'll be doing that at some point in the video. And, yeah, and then we got a lot of fun stuff. Oh, Caleb, did you want to try and read some of the like feedback on the show?
I didn't see anything that was new that we haven't touched on before, but I'll check again while you're kind of covering what's going on.
Okay. Uh-oh, that's fun. Goodness gracious, I got so many texts from work. But yeah, Mr. Frazier, how are you doing this week?
Another day, another dollar, my friend.
Fair enough. So yeah, I don't know. I wasn't planned for this. Oh, that's right. I do have my notes. That reminds me, folks. We're working on this. We're trying to get more, as the kids say, organized. So we are getting some notes together for this show, mostly for topics that we're talking about.
I will say that after last week's podcast, we put out a poll asking if Adam Driver's mid or not, and there's one response saying that he is indeed mid.
You know
He is
what?
indeed mid.
I would like to comment on that. I listened to that, and vaguely, I mean,
Yeah, go for it.
skimmed it. But I actually think that, one, Adam Driver is... I hated him when I first saw him from Star
Yeah.
Wars, but then saw other movies that he was in, like The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, by the way. Trippy movie. Super cool.
Heard.
He was wonderful in that. And honestly, I think he did a very good job in a lot of these Star Wars films. Or at least, maybe I
Wars.
should say this. His character, I think, was better written than most of the other characters, because he's the only character who has a consistent arc throughout all of the movies. Everybody else just kind of got shat on.
That's fair.
I guess.
But we'll touch on that more later.
Yeah. Well, you heard it, folks. The one person who voted said Adam Driver is indeed mid.
And
Actually,
that's the only interaction we got from last episode, so nothing new to touch on this week.
actually, there was I did put a poll on like Instagram, and 6 people said he wasn't mid, and like 3 or 4 people or.
How many of those were women?
You're not wrong, but remember,
Can I say that?
if you have daddy issues, you probably like Adam Driver.
Facts.
All right, so do we want to talk about episode 8 now?
Yes.
Okay,
Indeed. That's the
so-
whole reason we're here.
Let's do it.
Zach, what's your hot take on it? What do you
Frazier,
think?
man. Frazier.
Okay, whatever. Guy with
All
the
right.
nice beard.
So, thank you. So, my hot take is, it's not as bad as I thought it was the first 2 times I saw it.
I agree. It was the same way for me. So I talked a lot of shit on the episode 8 last episode, and then I went back and watched it and realized it's not that bad. The storytelling is not great, and it's kind of like what Marco said. It was all right. Like, it it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen in the world, but it also wasn't great. There's a lot more they could have done, especially with like Luke at the very end of it. And I think that letdown of what they did with the story in this episode is a lot of the reason why I didn't like the movie.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's my take on it.
So since the movie came out, I kind of had the same opinion, and it's kind of been that I don't like this movie, but I also don't hate it. I remember when it came out, one of the first things people hated about it was that Luke was the complete opposite of what he was in the originals, or he's not necessarily like not just a hero, but the hero, and he kind of keeps saying that throughout the film. He's not the person people expected him to be. But looking back at even like the originals, he was always kind of this whiny, annoying, impatient, is that the word? Just little shit. And so I was like, he's kind of consistent with that. Even Yoda's cameo where he's like, haven't we gone over this before?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think back to A New Hope. He knew about a religion for what, a day or two, and then was like, you don't believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, what do you know about that?
Yeah.
I really like how even when he agrees to teach Rey, he brings up that like, here, I will teach you the ways of the Force, and I'm also going to teach you the ways of like the Jedi, but also why it should end. And like it kind of shows that he's matured, and he's seen from like as a kid what like he remembered, and from like that kind of like, you don't believe, because it's all been kind of like a myth to him growing up, and then kind of following it blindly, and also seeing, oh, that's why Order 66 happened. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know, I didn't hate this movie, and I especially don't hate what they did with Luke.
I will absolutely agree with what you just said there, simply because the point of this movie, which is funny, when I was doing some research before this episode, I had to look up the plot. Like, what is the movie actually about?
Yeah.
And the plot is wrong in that, because from what I'm really getting after all of what I've been looking into, what I'm getting from this movie is that it's not about what side you're on. So for a very long time, George Lucas has always used wonderful imagery within his movies that kind of showed his point of view on things, and he's always spoken out about the Vietnam War, how much he disagreed with that. And he uses Nazi symbolism to show that, hey, this is the bad guy.
Exactly.
Those bucket helmets and such. But something a lot of us missed was at the end of Return of the Jedi, you see everybody's getting their medals. That scene almost perfectly mirrors a Nazi propaganda film about them basically winning the war. He did that to say it's still wrong.
Yeah.
You guys are out there killing people. You massacred everybody on
Here's
that
your
Death
medal.
Star.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations. You're also kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Like, and so this movie, I think, what was the guy? Rian Johnson? I think he did a wonderful job in keeping with that theme, because like Adam Driver, here we are connecting it back to Adam Driver.
Yeah.
His whole thing in this movie was, I was a Jedi, then I sort of was a Sith, but now I'm realizing it's the choosing sides that's the problem. And that's what I think a lot of us older fans, I was going to say true fans, older fans, like about the idea of a gray Jedi is Anakin didn't bring balance to the Force through killing the bad guy.
No.
Anakin brought balance to the Force because without Anakin, Order 66 would not have happened. He killed the good guy, but then killed the bad guy, thus bringing balance back to the Force. So I love that that's kind of the same idea that we have, and then JJ had to come in and fuck it all up. So
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. Here are my notes. Opening sequence, I actually really liked. I especially like that they kept very consistent with the first or Force Awakens in Poe's character. The second he's on like the phone with General Hux, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'll hold," and he's just still kind of like a sarcastic asshole.
the completely inappropriate use of comedy in a heavy situation. Absolutely.
And then he's just kind of like, "Can he hear me?" Like and they're like, "He's toying with you." I enjoyed that. I think the like some of the scenes where he's in an X-wing are just fantastic and really fun to watch. The way that action sequences happen in this film were just really well done. Cinematography.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of the
choreography.
action film cinematography in this film in particular are really good. I remember the first time I saw that, like the X-wing like flying over the lake, and like it goes up over the rebel base. That is still one of my favorite shots in all of Star Wars. Between that and the like ground speeders on Crate, yeah, those are two of my favorite cinematography wise shots in Star Wars so far. As far as like that side of thing goes, that's this movie does it the best out of the sequels, at least. Like between the action shots, between that speeder shot to the X-wing shot to the lightsaber fight between Rey, Kylo, and the Imperial Guard. All of that works really well together. It's just the overall story is what I don't like about this movie. It's just it feels like a mess.
It is such a mess, and I almost want to say there's an exact spot where this movie goes from being, this is pretty all right, to like, oh, that's why we hate this movie. And I want to say that's the bit where Leia does the Air Jordan. Because everything before then, I was just kind of like, okay, we can follow along, and then Leia exits the plot, and then whatever that one purple-haired chick was, I can't even remember her name.
General Hobbs, I think, is her name, but I don't.
Yeah,
Hawks,
that sounds right.
Hobbs. Something like that. It's got an H.
Holdo.
Yeah,
Holdo,
that's right.
yeah.
Whatever. Like, she enters the movie,
Admiral.
and
She's
then
Vice Admiral, by
right.
the way.
Oh, Vice Admiral.
Do not promote her. She doesn't deserve it.
It's not like she's got any promotions heading her way.
She died because she should have.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But like, she comes in, and then all of a sudden the communication at work just stops, and we all know what it's like when we have that manager who just doesn't communicate.
Why though? Because this is a good thing to touch on. Why did the communication stop?
Because they tripped on the plot.
So, tracking through hyperspace is supposed to be impossible. At some point they talk about how like new technology is coming out, but it's all kind of theoretical.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea is, hold on, if they tracked us through hyperspace, then there is a spy.
Yeah.
Which is why there was no communication. But this goes back to the bad manager. Because what are you ruining if you say, listen, Poe, we think there's a spy on the station, and just leave it at that? You haven't given any information other than, I don't trust you, and why should I? You just killed our entire bombing fleet.
Yeah.
Now what are we going to do?
That is true. It's not too bad.
For your pride.
Could I have you move your microphone just a little bit?
Quarter away. Where am I going?
Closer to you. Just a little bit. Maybe about there.
I'm about to punch myself in the eye with it.
There we go. Now you're
better.
sounding crispy.
Nice.
Sound like some Kentucky Fried Chicken over there. Yeah.
So touching on that point, I think the only reason I can see why they wouldn't tell Poe that is if he was the spy, he wouldn't just like dip, like, oh, I've been found out, and then that gives him a chance to leave before they even have an idea as to who the spy might be.
Oh, but they got those tasers.
If you get rid of
that
the
numb
spy,
everything.
you get to safety, right?
True.
So what does that matter? Now you know you can't trust him. But you already knew that.
Yeah. I like how they say that Leia's last thing that she, or her last command that she ever gave was to demote what's his name, but her actual last command was to get in his ship and go blow shit up.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He says, "Hey, can I go blow shit up?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So yeah, fun stuff.
Indeed.
Next up on the notes, I can't.
Get you
Score.
some cheaters, man.
Score. And you wanted to talk about
the
this
musical
last week.
scores. So the one redeeming, but consistently good part of the sequels and just Star Wars in general is the musical score. I think it's John Williams, right? Yeah. So John Williams consistently has these like amazing melodies that, like, you know, that that it creates this line throughout really the entirety of Star Wars, to where you can always feel like the mood or whatever the director is trying to portray, even if the director is awful at portraying whatever emotion he's trying to portray. You always have that soundtrack to be like, oh, okay, this is the bad guy coming in, or this is, you know, a moment of hope, or this is the spot where Luke is realizing that he messed up. And I think that's just amazing, because you look at other series like Star Trek, you miss that almost entirely.
You don't even think about it.
Yeah, you don't even think about the soundtrack to Star Trek, or other. John Williams has also done other stuff like Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, I think.
Yep.
He also did
Wonderful soundtrack.
amazing soundtracks, all of them really.
Add that to the film list to watch. Hey folks, we're gonna take a break from fun movies and movies we hate and like smiling and laughing and talk about Schindler's List.
Straight to the feel-good film of the year, Schindler's List.
Oh
A
yeah,
family fun classic.
yeah.
But yeah, I kind of want to say you can almost like close your eyes and just listen to the soundtrack playing in the background and you'll still be entertained. Like
So I fully agree, but can I say this?
what?
Yeah.
The new trilogy, the soundtracks are still very Star Wars, and I appreciate that more than most people will know after the comment I'm about to make.
Uh-oh.
It also feels very Disney these days.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one of the biggest issues I have with these new films is not only I don't like the comedy with, like, where they're screwing around with Hux. Bro, everybody just died. This is
Yeah.
a super serious scene. And then we're like, we're just gonna tickle, whatever his name is, something Hux.
Yeah.
But, like, it's fun to make certain jokes. Like, one of the jokes on Crate was perfect for Star Wars, where it was Kylo's just losing his mind. They're blown away what they think is Luke. And then Hux says, "Do you think he got him?" And that, like, it's not hilarious, but
it's just
that's
subtle.
Star Wars comedy. That's where
Star Wars
it's like,
comedy's always been very dry humor.
yeah.
One of my...
But-
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Oh, go ahead.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
Dry humor. Well, so like one of my all-time favorite jokes in Star Wars is where they're on the Death Star and they're like, "What's going on over there?" And Han, he's just kind of fumbling around this control. He's like, "Yeah, we're fine. Nothing to worry about here." And he's
Yeah, see, that was the right time to do that.
And I'm pretty sure that line was improvised by
Harrison Ford.
You forgot my guy, Harrison
I
Ford.
did.
Oh,
Indiana Jones,
Crucify me.
American Graffiti. He was another.
you could
things.
forget Ray all you want. That's fine. What was her name? Ridley.
Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
I don't know
like
why I
how we
knew
all-
that, but not Harrison Ford.
We all know Daisy Ridley, but we don't know Harrison Ford. That is tragic.
But who's the guy that played Finn? What was his name?
No idea.
So listen, I like him. I think
John
he's a good
Boyega.
actor, but like,
Yeah, John
what a
Boyega.
waste of an individual.
Yeah.
I think he's on my docket here somewhere.
That's
wait,
the
no, I
other
forgot
thing
to put
that
him on
feels
here.
really Disney about it is just this entirely pointless love plot between him and Rose.
Yeah.
I think
And
they.
I'm pretty sure
dumb.
Rose is like 16 in canon, which is
Ew.
disgusting to think about. Yeah.
Well, okay. If we're talking about disgusting, Anakin, Anakin and Padme.
Holy crap.
Oh, yeah,
he's
true.
he's had a stroke. Everyone.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay, I've been at work since 8 this morning. I got off, I drove straight here, and I was like, damn it, the house is a mess. I threw a desk in the basement, like...
It's okay. You were going for the relationship name, not
Yeah,
the individual.
Sure. But when there's this great bit in the first Phantom Menace, like, is that what? Yeah, in the first one, Phantom Menace. There's this great bit at the end during the celebration. They're all in the streets and everybody's dancing, and Anakin just looks at Padme, and he's like, "Yeah, I want a piece of that." And then she gives him this really creepy look where she's like, "Yeah, I want a piece of that."
She's like, bet.
yeah. And at that time, he's what, 9?
Well,
Yeah,
hold on. I'm going to
something
do
like
some
that.
research right
And
here.
then Padme is like 14 there, and it's weird.
It is. I guess, actually, now that I think
God,
about it, a
he
lot of
was
the love
9.
plots
He was 9.
in that entire thing. So you have like Padme and Anakin with
They're not easy names to say.
Padme and Anakin, yeah. And then you have Luke and Leia, which incest. Ooh, fun times.
9 and 14. Those
Yeah.
are the ages. 9 and 14.
Yeah.
See, I
Yeah.
knew she was 14. I was like, I don't know. Maybe he's like 12.
Maybe,
I was hoping.
maybe. Yeah, no, it's not.
No, because then 4 years later, well, then again, in Star Wars, is there like a legal age of consent?
I would hope so.
I did too.
I would
but,
hope so.
But maybe
He
like
was
for
a slave.
Oh,
True.
That is true. 12 years? No, only
That's probably
9.
too much.
We're supposed to save this for Max's podcast. Whoopsie daisies. I suppose if a joke
No,
slips in here or
so,
there.
To get back on track, I definitely agree that romance was completely unnecessary. One, hasn't he been pining over Ray this entire time?
was gonna say-
I have something to tell you, and we all know it's I love you, and it just never happens. And then all of a sudden, here comes what's her face, who
Yeah.
has no compelling story whatsoever. Yes, your sister died. I'm sorry. Who the hell
I would
are
have
you?
much rather have watched a movie around her sister. Her sister seems cool and interesting,
Oh yeah.
but Rose, I'm just like, we get the younger sister.
See, they had to
Nobody
throw in
cares.
all the wallflowers because, and this is more for Max's podcast as well. Max, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Traditional
honestly,
thinking.
like, there's so many
Work in
freaking
progress.
wallflowers these days. It's like, we get it. You got to throw in that guy, but like,
There's an entire movie dedicated to that. It's called Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and we'll get to it.
but like, we could have done something cool with that instead. In fact, Giant Ronson, nice. Ryan Johnson.
We're just not gonna be able to say names
Right.
this.
Nope.
So, the scene where they go to the casino, wherever that is, was supposed to be Finn and Poe. It was not supposed to be Finn and Rose. They changed
would've
it
been
to
so
Finn
much
and
fun.
Rose because Ryan Johnson said that Finn and Poe, they just have too much chemistry. They just work too well together for that scene to have any sort of fun. And you know what? I get that because I get, like, Rose was, like, kind of disgusted with how Finn's like, oh, this is going to be fun. But delete that scene.
Yeah. I think it would have worked better with Poe. In all honesty, it would like
Poe and
you don't have to have that character that's disgusted with somebody. You could have two characters with a lot of chemistry, just having some fun in a casino together. Granted, that entire scene just doesn't fit well in the movie.
I actually have a note about the casino somewhere in here. I really like the aesthetic of the casino.
Oh, yeah.
I would
absolutely.
love to see maybe like a spin-off around this casino or some of the shenanigans that gets up there. Even maybe some of this master hacker guy or whatever.
So, people in that casino are going to need what from the Star Wars galaxy?
Money.
No, they have plenty of that.
Drugs.
They're going to need some sort of bounty hunter. So,
Also that, yeah.
does it fit more in The Mandalorian
Maybe.
or Andor or something like that? Absolutely. Please give me more stuff like that. I'd love to see that. But what's happening during that scene?
Nothing.
everybody's about to die. So, how are you going to have... There's 3 different plot lines during that scene, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are extremely intense. 2 of them are like, hey, this is super serious. And then you have that, which just takes all the feeling away. And that's what this movie does, is it's very... Like, you're never really that stressed. You're like, oh, God. Oh, hey, something funny happened.
That's actually another one of my notes is the pacing of this movie.
Yeah, I'm just killing your notes.
No, actually, you're bringing me into my notes. That's what I'm saying. But, like, the pacing of this movie is, like, really weird because it's either really great pacing and, like I said, that opening, I really felt like there was a rush or like I was on the edge of my seat. Like, okay, we're in desperate times. We're running out of fuel. Oh, they just blew up the bad guy or the good guy's ship. And then it goes to our first introduction of Finn. And the first thing he says is, where's Ray? Transitions to Ray. And even there, it kind of...
Lost puppy dog again.
It kind of loses the... It kind of loses the momentum a little bit, but starts the slower part of the film. But
well, it's a preoccupation base.
But it's not a bad thing that the that plot line is a little bit slower. And so then when you cut back to all hell breaking loose on the ships and everything, it's like, okay, we're back into this, and then we break into that third subplot, and it's just goes nowhere, does nothing, doesn't have any of the pacing that the other 2 have, or intrigue, or any of that.
And on that same kind of note, it has a lot of that same kind of...
My notes? You're not going to be able to read them.
With the pacing, it has this potential to be like really, really, like, have you on the edge of your seat and have you like ready to, like, you know, be stressed about the plot or, like, you know, actually care about these characters, and then they toss in like this pointless plot line, like, you know.
Yeah.
Is this an astrological sign? What are these notes? I have awful handwriting. Good God.
Okay.
Like a 3-year-old had a seizure trying to do cursive.
It's cursive that's very bad. And you also have to remember, I was watching the movie and like
I can't.
Yeah, I told you weren't going to be able to read them.
Let me see this. I am...
So, like, at work, I always have this problem. They're like, write it on a piece of paper, and then they'll look at it, and they're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, man, I was trying to look at your notes like, okay, so what's the next topic so I can prepare, or, like, look at my 4 pages I wrote for nothing.
He's got... It's not that you wrote 4 pages for nothing.
It's wonderful. You'll have to read it. It's...
Hey, let's start working through your 4 pages of notes here.
Just watch as his 4 pages.
He's
He's
like,
like,
though it's like an essay.
Oh wow!
He's like, it's double spaced and it's like college and like.
It's single space, but it is Times New Roman and font size 12.
Okay, and then he's also like, and I have what is it? I have the. What is it? What is that thing that they made me do in college where they're like citing your sources?
Yes.
They're like, I have all my sources cited.
Well, I didn't do that.
No need.
But
here's my thesis.
No, so let me run through just a few of the things.
Give us the spark notes of your essay.
Well, okay, so just the very top says the word "but" cannot start a sentence, let alone a paragraph, because in the opening scroll, they have that. And listen, I know I'm just nitpicking, but that really kind of messed with me.
Yeah.
And I was tipsy for the movie because I was trying to enjoy it.
Yeah. I think all of us were.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah. So I was like, this is just foreshadowing for the shit that is to come. The spacecraft bombers that use gravity bombs. Please, come on. What?
That was a little odd.
At least give it, like, call it a magnet,
like a mag bomb or something like that.
Yeah, just to give us something that says, I'm not completely retarded.
Yeah.
I think I bleeped out the wrong word in that sentence.
Yeah, whatever.
And then my other big issue before my paragraphs start was the juvenile language. At one point, Luke says, and I quote, "the most unfindable place in the galaxy."
So I'm not the only person.
Hell?
I completely just like zoned out for all of that stuff with Luke. Like I've gotten to the point with, especially these sequel movies, I'm just used to that kind of language that they use. Yeah, you're right. It feels juvenile in a way, and like there's
like Star Wars used to be like the Iliad. It was a poem. It was beautiful. It was symbolic, and now it's just face value.
Disney.
yeah,
right.
Disney made it very childish.
It's like the difference between Marvel, very well written, wonderful cinematography, amazing stuff, and DC. Don't get me wrong. Holy crap! What a beautiful movie. Basically every DC movie, but give me some substance like what was in the comics.
Yeah.
Same thing with these new movies. It's wow, that was beautiful. If I had an IQ of 70, that would have been perfect for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If we could just cut out all the dialogue and just watch the cinematography, like absolutely lovely movie.
And some of John
10 out of
Williams
10.
score.
Yeah, and the score, yes.
Just music and image. Yeah,
It'd be like an anime.
It would be 10 times better. But
anime, you don't understand what's happening, but
Can we
you don't
get a
care.
Star Wars anime? I would love
that's what
that.
Star Wars Visions is supposed to be. It's like
I didn't like Visions that much. It was okay.
it's hard for me to watch just because it doesn't have a continuous storyline. It's one shot after one shot after one shot. So it's I think their whole like concept behind it is
What's that called?
Star Wars Visions.
No, it's a anthology. There we
Yeah,
go.
something like that. But their whole like concept behind it is to get different anime studios from Japan and have each studio give their own take on Star Wars. So that's why you have different art styles for every single one, different kind of plot lines for every single one.
And I love that. That was beautiful.
Did y'all
Oh, yeah.
watch The Boys at all?
Bits and pieces,
what
yeah.
a fucked. I've never felt so much anxiety in my life. I tried to binge it, and you get like 3 episodes in, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta sit down, or I am, but fuck, I gotta do something.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's a weird show, man.
Like, where's the whiskey? It's not for the faint of heart.
That's
and-
one that like I genuinely just didn't enjoy it like halfway through. I was like, I feel like I should finish this, but I don't want to.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
fair.
kind of completely
There was
fair.
a lot of weird shit. There was like
Yeah.
that rapey stuff. I was like, bro, I don't need that in my
Yeah, no, there's
ears.
no point.
Like, you could leave that out. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, they try and adapt like a lot of stuff from the comics, and the comics aren't particularly great, but they're not.
Hold on, The Boys that came from comics?
Oh yeah, The Boys was a comic,
that.
and there's also a The Boys cartoon show on Netflix. I think
I
as
did
well.
see that. That's like equally as wild.
Well, that was actually the whole point I was going to make about The Boys. Was there is a show called Diabolical,
Yeah.
and it's what is it? That it's supposed to be like a cartoon or animated like version of The Boys, and but it's kind of like Visions, where it's that anthology. And I get what you mean by it's hard to sit down and just watch one of those, because sometimes you get into a plot where it's like, oh my god, this is really good, between a lady who's dying and her husband who's trying to understand her powers and whatnot before she dies, and it's beautiful cinematography, and then the next episode being about a literal piece of shit that comes alive due to powers, and then they fight the Aquaman knockoff.
It's definitely one where like if you have like 30 minutes, you just sit down, you don't have anything else to do,
Yeah.
like you can just sit down, turn an episode of that on, and it's great for that. Or just like casual watching. You know, I wouldn't binge watch Visions, but
See, I would just love Death Robots it, man. That's way
yeah,
better.
exactly.
Yeah.
Super weird shit on that, too.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the next topic? We gotta... Stay on Star Wars.
Let's see, I don't know. This podcast is all over the place.
Can you read your own handwriting?
This one's a good one. The blue milk titty animal thing. What's your take on that?
Do you want to go first?
Go for it. That's all you.
Listen. The blue milk thing has always been a joke, and it's a fun joke. Don't get me wrong. Bad lip reading does, what was it? Bushes of Love. It's my favorite song from them. It's so funny. But they make a reference to it. But it's always a funny joke. Like, blue milk. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
So, there's the green milk, like, by all means, have green milk in it. But why do you have to have him drinking that like a freaking
Like straight out the
animal?
teat.
Bro, he drinks that worse than my 4-year-old drinks anything. Like, it's nasty.
Yeah.
It really
There's
is.
no need for that. It's just like, oh, by the way, do you not hate Luke yet? Because now you
You're
do.
going to.
I wonder if it's supposed to be like that, like downtrodden hero, like he's hit rock bottom, and that's like what it's supposed to portray. Kind of like the fat Thor of.
Yeah.
Hey,
What-
that was. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
I
very early
think-
in the morning for Luke to.
I think it's that same kind of aspect as to like they're trying to portray him as being this like he's hit rock bottom, like, you know, his Jedi school failed. He's just trying to. I think he's trying to just live out his life on this island alone and just die. You know, that's what
Yeah.
it feels like.
So I think the little things in life matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing like a good cold glass of milk. But
Absolutely.
when you drink a ice
It's
cold glass of
warm.
milk, it kind of like burns the throat, and you get that face that Luke made. But that came straight out of a teat, bro. Like, that stuff's like 98
Unfiltered.
degrees. Like,
Yeah.
it's not. So why did he wince like it was whiskey? I
Probably
don't know.
because it was 98 degrees and straight up the teeth.
It's
Maybe.
those little things that are like, you just did it wrong, and if you stop doing,
If you used like two more brain cells, you would have gotten it right.
like, by all means, fill a canteen and then have him drink it on the way to going and doing the whole fishing scene, which was stupid as hell. Why do you have to go to the side of a cliff to then stab it? That to just then swing back and then pull up this 100-foot pole? Like, that's it. Doesn't make
Quote dead Han Solo. That's not how the Force works.
it was just unnecessary. But like, on the way to the fishing scene, okay, maybe now you drink your milk, and she's like, wow, that was kind of fucking weird. But God, he's not a rabid animal.
No. They did Luke so dirty in that movie.
You know what? And you've made comments like that before so far, and I gotta say, I actually really like Luke in these movies. I hated it at first, but
With this movie in particular, because the last movie, it's fine. He's like this mystical, like, you know, the hero that we've all waited for. But throughout the entire original trilogy, he was supposed to be like the chosen one. Like, he was supposed to be the one after
he was
Anakin.
never the chosen
Or
one.
not, yeah, not the chosen one, but he was supposed to be the one who saved everybody. He was supposed to be like, you know, the icon, the hero, exactly. And he spent all this time training and becoming better at the Force, better at being a Jedi. He even started his own school. So you expect him to be,
in Legends.
yeah, exactly. You expect him to be this almost like all powerful Force user at this point. And you see a little bit of that on Crete with his Force projection, but beyond that, you don't really see any of him being powerful with the Force or powerful as a Jedi.
Actually, that's one thing I really love about this movie is when he is on like Crate and he walks up and he's literally facing down the First Order all by himself and whatever, and just the fact that he never really swings his lightsaber. He just holds it and he just
He's
kind of
dodging.
yeah, and he's kind of just toying with Kylo the whole time. But like,
Well, because his force projection can't stop a lightsaber.
Yeah,
right.
no.
So yeah.
But like, even if, regardless of whether he was there or not, I 100% believe he could have just never have swung his lightsaber and just kept messing with him for hours.
I mean, if you can imagine it, you can do it so long as your body is used to those movements and such. And of course his is at this point.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe he just breaks down and he does that first bend and he's like, "Oh my back!"
So when I first saw these movies, I thought that we were getting away from Legends. And up until, I love that I was asked to come on here and talk about this, because without the research that I did over the last few days, I would have still been thinking the same thing. But I love that they had Luke try and he failed, because that was a great lesson that Yoda was teaching, in that it is that failure that teaches you much more than your success. That's what I teach all of my guys for what I do. And so seeing that is great. I guess it's fine that I was really mad to find out that Rey's creating her own school, and she's finally creating the new Jedi Order that those of us who read the books and like the legends, I like the new Jedi Order because you should be able to marry someone, you should be able to feel love and stuff. You shouldn't have to be that monk, you should be balanced, and that's what it's all about. So it's a bummer that wasn't Luke, because that's what I wanted. Yeah. But what I wanted is not exactly what has to happen. I think we're going the right direction. But get J.J. Abrams the hell away from Star Wars. I'm sick and tired of it. He's not... Because he fucks up, and then Rian Johnson's like, hold on, let's do something deep like Star Wars used to always be. Yes. And then J.J. says... No, I'm a 3-year-old with my toys, you're playing with my toys wrong, and I'm gonna retcon everything for half a fucking movie. Yep. And then get nowhere with the rest of it other than giving Rey a magical grandpa, which was stupid. That's a quote, by the way, from a YouTuber, so I'm sorry I used that.
Oh, trust us, nobody watches this.
So that and taking away that anybody can be powerful. Rian Johnson had a great point with having her parents just be junkers.
I was going to say, I love the... One thing that I absolutely love is they kind of... Throughout the first 2 movies, they say, like, don't be ashamed of who you are. And so then she finds out, I am and she tells Luke, like, hey, I am nobody from nowhere. And he's like, you can't be nobody from nowhere. And I'm from Jakku. And he's like, oh yeah, that is nowhere.
See, that was a good joke. I like that one.
And then she finds out my parents were nobody. I literally am. Like, my whole life I've thought I'm nobody, but like to actually hear it, it was a little bit of a shock for her. Right. And then like the next movie, it's the complete opposite, where you're a Palpatine, and then all of a sudden she, even if they were to stick with that, like, I'm nobody from nowhere, or even if they were to stick with she's a Palpatine, they then retcon the story of like, well, I'm gonna be a Skywalker instead, because why and then it's like,
listen, all the heroes in Star Wars have to be a whiny little bitch. I'm not a Palpatine, I'm a Skywalker. So you're a Skywalker, so you can't. You loved a Solo and hate being a Palpatine, so now you're a fucking Skywalker? How'd that work?
Yeah, like, I don't know. But, like, could you imagine, let's just say they say she's a Palpatine, and she does the opposite of what a Palpatine has done. And a Palpatine goes from being the big baddie in the background, and now is the good guy.
Can I say this, though? Him and Plagueis had done some things that nobody has ever fucking done before. Yeah. He made some, quote unquote, not technological, but like, advancements with the Force that were pretty freaking cool. Yeah. So, I like that, but once you bring Palpatine back, what happens?
Well, fucking nothing.
So everything that we have grown up loving, everything Luke did, everything Anakin did,
was all for nothing.
Absolutely pointless. Like, what the hell?
One of my least favorite things in all of Star Wars is the beginning of Episode 9, where it just says, Palpatine has returned! And I'm like, what? It's just stupid. Yeah. But that being said, we're talking about Episode 8 here, and we can definitely thrash on that movie next week if you'd like to come back and do another 3 or 4 pages.
Oh, bro, I'll do it again. Yeah, for sure.
We'll see. Next week, I need to actually hit Dayton up and see if
I want to watch the 9th one.
I don't think anybody wants to watch it.
You know what? And what a, like, let's play devil's advocate and say that bringing Palpatine back was a good idea. Yeah. For the sake of it, it's a good idea now. How are you going to give that away in the trailer? Yeah. Let that be something that all of us shit a brick in the theaters. Yeah. But no, you took away the one thing we were all going to fucking shit about. And
indeed.
Now it's like, okay, cool. So we're just going to write a shit movie. Good luck.
You might
Have
as well
fun.
just watch the trailer and call it the movie at that
I hope
point.
you took some
that's-
acid.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
exactly. That's like the entire point. The entire like big cliffhanger or the big like shocker at the end of the movie.
Even better,
Just give it away with the trailers.
watch the trailer that George Lucas watched and watch that video. That's way more fun.
Yeah.
Where he's just shitting on it. He's like, well, why'd they trip on the plot? I quote that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for George. I have a lot of love for George. Just like the things that he's worked on in the past. The Star Wars universe is. I have one tattoo. It's a Star Wars tattoo.
Hell yeah.
I love George, and we have done nothing but shit on him. Like the fandom with the prequels, which the prequels were great.
The prequels, I went back and watched all of them.
I
They're
love
great.
them.
Fantastic.
It just had
I don't
the
know why they got so
Phantom
much
Menace
crap.
gets so much shit.
You
And
just have some
honestly,
rough writing.
it's one of the best movies in my opinion. There's a lot of great visuals. There's a lot of and it introduces Jar Jar. I don't give a shit what all of you people say. I love Jar Jar.
I like
Jar
him, but
Jar's
he's
a very good
annoying.
action figure. And that's
I want him to be. Have you guys seen the comics where he displays a force ability?
yeah.
I've not.
Dude, it's a canon comic. Okay, so what happens is he's like in
it's
the midst.
canon?
Yeah.
Good shit.
So he's in the midst of a battle that kind of breaks out, and the Jedi that's, I guess, general of that battle falls in battle. So the lightsaber's picked up. They give it to Jar Jar, who's just a diplomat at the time. So they give it to him to hold on to. Well, because the general falls, they all retreat. And again, it's that normal thing where, you got to take down the shield generator.
Of course.
So who else will do it but Rex? So Rex tells a few of the
Captain
clones.
Rex?
Yeah.
Oh, way
So
cool.
he says, I'm going to get past enemy lines tonight. Nobody needs to know about this. Jar Jar overhears the whole thing. He's like hiding in some bushes and hears it.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, I'm going to go help him. Which
Okay.
to us, we're like, that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
But
This does sound like a lot of fun.
so he goes and he sees that Rex is in some trouble. He's about to get killed, and a lightsaber comes flying out of nowhere, kills like 2 droids, returns back to Jar Jar's hand, and then Rex notices him, and Jar Jar's like, and starts fumbling the lightsaber about and drops it.
Uh-huh.
He
Is force sensitive?
he did a lightsaber throw and it came back to him. Okay, so don't tell me he's not force sensitive and that he's not the Sith controlling everything.
I was gonna
would
say
love
yes.
that.
That's my
whole
favorite
Darth
fan
Jar Jar.
theory.
Yeah.
Darth Jar Jar, yeah.
I mean,
I wish instead of Snoke and Palpatine coming back, they would have just stuck with Jar Jar.
see, and I don't
honestly-
even mind Snoke. Snoke's like it's just like a placeholder, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
So actually, I got a quick note about Snoke, and it's I actually didn't hate Snoke, but I did like what they did with him. Because once again, going back to the whole breaking everything that Star Wars has been known to be, breaking this like preconceived notion that there's somebody in the shadows controlling it. There's an emperor, or there's a Palpatine, or there's somebody in that background. Like in A New Hope, the only villain is Darth Vader, but that's because they weren't planning on making sequels, and then they did, and all right, now there's the Emperor, and then in the prequels you got Palpatine, who's still kind of the villain, but it's showing how he got to being the Emperor, and like he's controlling everything from the shadows. And then you have Snoke, and he just dies.
Where does that preconception come from? Because I genuinely am asking this question because I've never had the idea that the bad guy's always lurking in the shadows. Simply because, like, if you look at a lot of...
What I mean is, like, maybe not lurking in the shadows, but there's the bad guy, but then there's like the bigger fish. You know?
Well, and that's always been
That's
Palpatine
always a
in the
bigger
prequels
fish.
and the original trilogy, because obviously in the prequels he is controlling both the Republic
Right.
and the Separatists, and then
in the limelight.
in the limelight.
Yeah.
And then you move that further with A New Hope. He's obviously the big bad. He's controlling everybody. He's got his puppet, who is Darth Vader.
Right.
And at that point, he's become a recluse. He's not in the limelight anymore.
No, not at all. He's by all means ruling from the shadows.
I guess what I'm mostly trying to say is that like Kylo Ren's the puppet and Snoke is the real bad guy.
Not necessarily. So the way I see it is, you see the same thing if you look at like the Clone Wars, or you look at some of the like the canon books and stuff. Is in order for a Sith to become a master, he has to kill his master. And you see that, I think it starts with like the Darth Plagueis era of Sith, and then it continues with like Dooku and all of them. Is in order to be considered a true Sith master, they had to kill whoever their mentor was. And I think that's what they're trying to do with Kylo.
Well, and to be a true Sith, because there's only two true Siths, right? Ever since the time of Bane,
Darth Jar Jar?
there's only two Siths. So you have, at that point, Plagueis and Sidious are really the only two true Siths. So Dooku was something akin to a Sith assassin, but was used in a more intricate way.
Yeah.
Maul was never anything. He was never supposed to be anything more than a Sith assassin, but he was extremely powerful in the Force, which is why we get to have all that stuff from the Clone Wars, which was amazing. Same with Ventress.
I would like to see more with Ventress.
By the time Vader comes about, Plagueis is dead.
Right.
So now there's only one actual Sith, because Dooku's not a Sith during that time. He's
True.
really, and his backstory is super cool, because he never really was a Sith. He just disagreed with the Jedi and was like, well, shit, I have to kind of go this route for now. And his plan all along was to kill Palpatine at some point, which good fucking luck, guy. Like,
Right.
you're great with that Makashi and all, but you can't like stand up to him force ability wise.
No. Yeah.
Not even close.
It's like it's kind of like when you're going to vote, and it's like you can kind of pick your different you can kind of pick your political affiliation, but not really. It's like one or the other, and then you can also put like
Lesser
I'm
of
an
two evils.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm an independent, but like I don't know. And it's kind of the same thing in Star Wars, where it's like, well, I'm force sensitive, but I don't necessarily want to be a Jedi, but I also don't necessarily want to be a Sith, but I also don't necessarily want to be an independent. I just want to not do this at all.
And this is where the new trilogy really missed out on a wonderful opportunity. So Rogue One, we got that guy who's not a Jedi.
Yeah.
He's the blind guy, right?
Yeah.
That was super cool. Give me more factions. Like, if for anybody listening, if you've not done a YouTube search on the different Force factions, go do that. Like, it's amazing. There's multiple dark side, multiple light side. They all have different ideas. One of the factions is seen by the Jedi as dark side, but they're more elementalists, which, if that doesn't make sense yet, just go look it up. It's super interesting.
Right.
But yeah, like, you could have shown us some of that.
And I think they're going to, with the new series that's coming out, the Acolytes, I think. Acolytes?
I hope so. Because that should be Sith, though. Sith Acolyte is...
It's going to be the Old Republic, where they're going to show us, like, the Jedi in their prime, and a lot of, like, you know, the older Sith and all that kind of stuff. I'm excited to see what they do with it. They could either do it really well or do it really badly. And there is no in between.
I would love to see what they do with Sith alchemy. So like when they used to make those swords that were damn near everything that a lightsaber was, if not more powerful. Wow, dude, let's play around with that. Or like another example of Sith alchemy is like Darth Nihilus. Do you guys know who that is?
Darth Nihilus, I don't think so.
Familiar.
Guys, go play the KOTOR series. It's amazing.
I've been wanting to get around to it, but don't.
No, I don't want to hear your excuses.
Okay,
You can get it on your phone.
You can?
It's also on Steam, super cheap. I just bought both.
What is
it's
it
like
called?
$10 each.
Knights of the Old Republic.
KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
Okay.
And then there's the second one with the Sith. It's not quite as good, but you have like more customization choices. But that's where you learn about Nihilus and Scion, and Kreia. Oh,
Kreia.
well, I see you guys. I'm gonna go like down a huge tangent. Kreia is cool as fuck. There's a video on YouTube, The Philosophy of Kreia. Look it up and tell me you don't love Kreia after that.
Okay.
So, but she's like your master in the second one. It's super cool.
Okay.
But okay, so Nihilus learns how to like basically drain the life power out of people, and does it so much that every time he does it, it kind of takes a piece of his physical being away. And at some point, he becomes just like his mask and clothing. Much like, I can't remember this Sith's name now, but there was another Sith in the past that like his essence went into his helmet. So same thing. Nihilus actually destroyed an entire planet by sucking the life out of everyone. Like, that's how powerful this guy is. It's insane. But I would love to see things like that.
The Dementors. They suck the life out of you.
You know,
Nice
we
office
actually got a
job.
little bit of it with
Watching these movies.
what's the Night Sisters? Where are they from? That red planet?
Oh, Deathmere? Yeah. Or no,
so
Deathmere
that's a
is
dark
where
side.
Maul's from.
Yeah.
Is it the same planet?
Yeah,
Night Sisters
same
and
thing.
Maul? Okay.
Yeah, because Maul is just the male of that species.
Right.
But what like that is dark side force abilities. They see it as witchcraft, but what is witchcraft if not the force? It's the universe. You're just manipulating it. So
Yeah.
And that's why I think they missed out on so much in the sequels, is because there's so much of that stuff in Legends, so much of that stuff that you can play with, that you don't need
even
to do all
in
this
canon
stuff.
at this point.
Exactly. You don't need to do all this extra stuff with Finn and Rose. You don't have to do all this extra stuff with
The Holdo maneuver.
Yeah, no. Of course, that's the one time we ever see it. You know, you would think that if
They bring it up in the next, or not.
suicide jumping into a massive destroyer would just wipe out an entire fleet, you'd think that you would see that more.
Well, so in the movie and in the discussion, if anybody remembers which one that
They
is.
say it's like, it's 1 in a million.
Yeah, it's 1 in a million. And it really is, because it's one of those things where it's like how your ship fractures could determine whether or not you actually hit anything behind it. Or why the fuck was the big ass ship in the front in the first place? That's just an awful strategic maneuver.
Yeah.
So normally that's not the case. Normally it's some smaller frigate, and if you hit a smaller frigate with that, it's like throwing rocks at a military Humvee. Like, okay, whatever.
Way cool. Talking about the Force, actually, this is something that I have somewhat of a note about somewhere in here.
I would hope so. It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
No, instead I got transitions. No, actually, in talking about the Force, though, I really liked how when Luke actually is talking about the Force and he's messing with Rey, he's like, now reach out, and then
With the grass.
he's like, do you feel that? And yeah, I feel it. And he's like, do you feel it? And he's like, no. Like, reach out. And the way he explains it as it's all around us, it's not a power, and he's kind of breaking that preconceived notion that everyone in the galaxy thinks, oh, it's magic, or it's like, no, it's literally everything that's around us, and
It
you're
surrounds
just
us and penetrates us.
And it kind of parallels what he did with Obi-Wan and Luke in the trilogy, because I think he kind of goes through that same kind of lecture with Luke when they're on the Millennium Falcon, when he's getting shot by the little like drone thing that's floating around. It's like, use the Force, it's all around you, it's not a magical power.
yeah.
I don't remember exactly what the dialogue is there, but it's something along those lines.
And even Yoda kind of like keeps trying to teach him that, and then, like I said, he's this kind of annoying little shit who's just like, yeah, but it's supposed to be a power. And it's like, boy, have you lost your mind? Because I don't know. It's great. But yeah, another note I got, transitions. I really like transitions in this film. I think a lot of them were pretty good. Like I mentioned this earlier, the where's Ray, and then immediately cuts to where's Ray, and it's like, oh, that was easier rather than or not easier, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And then another fun transition.
This is what you get when you have a director write a story, though.
Yeah.
Just direct it, my guy.
Really nice transitions and amazing cinematography, but where the fuck's the story?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So who do we bring in this to, or do we? We've already agreed J.J. Abrams isn't the right guy.
Right.
So who
Bring
else?
Ryan Johnson back. Everybody's pissed about Ryan Johnson, but listen, he's the one that was trying to do something good. JJ, that's what. Okay, so you were already set up for failure when you go from having one writer/director to having a new guy take over, because you already, the tone's going to be different. It's just like every time you watched a cartoon or an anime or something, and the artist changed, and
Something was
you're just
slightly
like,
off.
something doesn't look right. So it's kind of like that. The essence just isn't there. But I think that he held more true to the fact that there needed to be like a deeper story.
Yeah.
Whereas JJ is just like, let's
JJ
make shit blow up. Woo!
It's like, the Michael Bay kind of like mentality. And I was reading about it, and he didn't actually want to be the director for the 9th movie, because originally, we kind of touched on this last episode, but it was supposed to be 3 different directors, but the last guy backed out last second, so they brought JJ Abrams back.
Idea.
Yeah, no, it's awful. Creatively, it's an awful idea, because you're not going to have the same voice, you're not going to have the same kind of flow.
The only way
was this a KK problem?
I think so.
Probably.
I don't remember.
And Kathleen Kennedy.
This sounds like the only way, in the only world this works is if you do have like an ironed out idea of like, all right, point, it's A, B, and C are made in this film, D, E, and F are made in this one, and G, H, and I don't know, I'm running out of letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, oh, I am right, are made in this film. And it's like, if you have those ideas ironed out, perfect. And then you have 3 different directors who take those ideas and those elements and whatnot, and they just kind of tell their story a little bit differently. Perfect. Fine. But at least you have some consistency in your writing. Because directors are just portraying that writing and conveying that message. They're literally just putting it into action. But 3 different writers and directors.
Yeah, because then you have no consistency. Then you have, like you were saying in episode 9, where the half the movie spent retconning everything in episode 8. And we can talk about that more when we move on to episode 9 as to what
I'm
exactly
really
gets retconned.
excited to go back and watch 9. Like
You're excited for 9?
I am, because I really want to see, because I was expecting to go into this movie and actually like it a lot less than I did.
Right.
Like, and then I watched it, because I remember thinking, they're all going to hate me. Nobody's going to want to come back on the podcast after I say I actually enjoyed 8.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, 8 was decent.
I enjoyed it more than 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered liking 7 more than I liked 8. And then I remember I watched 7. I was like, this movie sucks.
Well, I mean, 7, you go into that without any sort of like preconception of what it's going to be, and you're like, you know what? Okay, yeah. I'll watch the next one. Why not?
Yeah.
And then you watch the next one, and you're like, fuck that.
Yeah.
But that's why you can't be changing up the directors and stuff. That's why Kathleen Kennedy needs to go choke on it.
Yeah. She needs to go choke on that blue milk.
If she dies soon, like, it wasn't me. I was just
It's just
being facetious.
the things said on this podcast do not reflect our actual views. It's all a joke.
This seems like a great place for an ad.
Do we do the ad reading on the podcast, or is it separate? I think it's separate because
It is, but
okay.
either way, I'll just use that as this.
NordVPN.
Yeah, something like that.
Rage Shadow Legend.
Do you want me to do the reading or not?
Insert
G3
ad
Solar.
right now,
Okay.
and then we'll record it later. But
Okay,
insert
gotcha.
it right now. The third time I said right now,
All right.
or before.
Can
time
you say
one.
insert it one more time?
Insert? Insert ad now. Okay, so the porgs. Any thoughts on that?
They're
Porgs.
just the like weird little like teddy bear like things that are running around Luke's island.
Oh,
The
the,
little
fucking like
bird
the
penguin
penguin
thing.
Yeah,
things?
yeah.
It's just
It's
unnecessary.
I mean,
Disney.
They're cool. It's Disney.
I really like the bit with Chewbacca.
It's like Grogu, where like the entire reason they exist is to
sell toys.
sell toys.
yeah.
I really like the bit with Chewbacca though, where he's like cooked one up and he's like, "I'm gonna have this," and then they're looking at him and he's like, "Go away! I don't want to feel guilty." And then he's still gonna go eat it, and there's just one left, and he like scares it away finally, and then he looks at it and he's like, "Damn it!"
And then checks it
Your
off.
childlike wonder. I love it. I love it, and I love you. But I gotta say, it's not Star Wars.
No,
No, it's not.
Like,
I
if-
just like Chewbacca that bit because it's one of the
It's
only
fan
times we
service.
see.
Like, let's think back to like A New Hope. Okay, this little shit is crying about how its brother is getting eaten
Yeah.
by Chewbacca. He's probably gonna start plucking feathers again.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a crap. He'll backhand that little thing. And now he's like, I guess I don't want to eat it. No, man, fuck that.
No,
He's
this-
a Wookiee,
That's more food.
Yeah.
Like, one little bird isn't going to sustain a whole ass Wookiee.
right? That's a snack, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's one of the few scenes we actually see of Chewbacca in this film. He's just in the background doing nothing.
Mhm.
Like we see him maybe a total of 3 minutes in the
He
this-
really doesn't do a whole lot in this movie.
Like there's the bit where he kicks down the door and Luke is like, "Oh, hey Chewie," and then where's Han? And then another transition where it then cuts to the guy who killed him.
Yeah.
And yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, no, like I would have liked to see more Chewie. I also like the cheap joke that R2 does, or not cheap joke, but where he's like, "Why should I do it?" And then he plays the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi." Luke is like, "That's a low blow."
Yeah.
That's pretty great. I feel like the fan service was actually pretty good in this one.
Yes.
Which fans?
True.
They didn't service me, I'll tell you that much.
But like the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi," the
Just
Yoda cameo.
just a bunch of callbacks to just the original series. So like, Yoda coming back, smacking Luke. Like, I mean, that whole thing, it's unnecessary. I mean, like, he's trying to burn the elder texts or whatever they are.
The sacred Jedi text.
Yeah.
Wait, you didn't like Yoda coming back for that
No,
scene?
no. I thought it was great, but
Oh.
it's entirely fan service.
That's
Like,
what we're saying.
it's-
Is
You know what? I don't know if it was. I think it was actually really good to explain to the fans what actually is happening.
True.
Because we all know that
Okay,
Star
so it's
Wars is
not-
gonna,
So
Star Wars
then
fans are
we're-
gonna sit
all
and
we're-
bitch about everything.
So all
Yeah.
we're doing is we're agreeing that this movie is better than we thought it was because it's not even fan service; it's just plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Hey,
I
there
will
you go.
say-
There's more plot in this movie than the last one. Let's go.
I will say this though. So I'm a part of a lot of Facebook Star Wars groups, and I love to shit on these pedestrian fans. Listen, if you're a pedestrian, that's great. Sit down and just watch the show. Stop engaging until you are no longer a pedestrian, okay? But so, and I don't mean to like be, yeah, whatever, I'm an ass, that's fine. So I had this lady yesterday who was talking about this film specifically, and I was like, I mentioned that I was going to be on a podcast for this, so I love this conversation. Please, let's keep going with it. And she starts talking about the cameos. That's what she said, was cameos. And I'm
Cameos,
thinking like what's that one girl's name? I'll be politically correct about it and just say one girl. She was showing up with Jack Black.
Lizzo.
Yeah, there we go. No idea who that is, by the way. But so that person and Jack Black showing up in that episode, you know what? I'm fine with it. It's a series. By all means, throw that in there. I think Jack Black in Star Wars. I don't like him. I think he's a dick. But you know what? Okay, fine. I'm fine with that. But those are the cameos that I think of as cameos.
Yeah.
She was referring to Luke and Leia and Chewie like those are cameos. Like, no, those are in-universe fucking characters,
those
you
are
pedestrian. What are you
characters-
talking about?
Least would be side characters, but these are kind of main characters in the plot of these films.
Yeah, you bring the bald guy with that weird head thing from Bespin. Okay.
Oh my god, yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot
that's
about
a
that guy.
cameo, whatever. Like, which actually he has a really strange backstory.
I don't doubt it. Every single like weird character like that has some weird ass backstory,
Yeah.
like the jazz band
Boba
in the
Fett.
cantina.
She was talking about Boba being a cameo in the prequels.
No
like, yeah,
way.
Boba-
I was like, what are you smoking?
Boba
They
Fett,
finally give him a
they're like-
story.
Yeah.
It's like she's like, yeah, Boba Fett in that one show, the Book of Boba Fett. That was a nice cameo.
That's right.
Or okay, if you want to talk about
It's like a
cameos, I would say
tertiary.
like Ahsoka in that one episode of The Mandalorian. That's
Yeah.
a cameo. That's
Yeah.
something where I can see
Okay.
like, okay,
Pretty
yeah,
major
all right,
cameo.
I
Yeah.
see. I can see where you would be confused with
But the
that.
people that are in all three,
Yeah.
come on. What are you,
You know,
talking about? Can I say, by the way, I love Ahsoka. It's my favorite character. What an awful job they did depicting her in that.
I think they did as best of a job as they could with what they had.
what do you
I
mean?
don't like. Are you talking about
I
like?
love the direction you're going with that.
Are you talking about like how they depicted like her character design, or how like? Like okay, I thought
As a
you were talking
character?
about like.
Hey,
as a
okay.
character?
I'm not a huge fan of her face. I don't know. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, he's racist. I don't know what
just
reality is, but
it
I'm just
doesn't matter.
We're all
Really.
just a
her
little
face.
bit
Like
racist.
it just didn't necessarily. What?
What?
So, so
Again, this
We're gonna
podcast does
snip
not
that.
reflect our actual views.
So, no, her character design's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
My issue is she has always been extremely acrobatic, which makes sense being Anakin's
Yeah.
Padawan. She was young, she was agile.
Right.
But by the time of The Mandalorian, she is in her prime. She's not some 17-year-old anymore. She's like 20-something, strong as can be. That's prime
Right.
for
Yeah.
a fighter. So why the hell is she swinging a sword around like she's fucking Obi-Wan when he's 90 years old? Like, come on, dude.
I wonder if again, I feel like it's supposed to portray her being more mature as a Jedi or as a Force wielder,
Yeah.
not a Jedi because she's not a Jedi.
Maybe they didn't have the
Um,
budget for all
Or
this
also
stuff.
that yeah, the sword fights recently have been
Deteriorating.
Well, I
not
want the
deteriorating,
Mandalorian
no.
to be shitty with that sword.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
a
no.
Mandalorian. He doesn't use a sword. He
No,
uses
not
a
at all.
knife and very well, but the sword he's cumbersome with, and that's fine. And they have other things in the background for that, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
The what I have an issue with is, or let me say this: the understanding that the episode was trying to call back to what George Lucas was referencing, all those like samurai movies and stuff.
Yeah.
That's hey, I love that. Wrong fucking character to do that with.
There-
True. They could have done that with anybody, but not Ahsoka. Ahsoka, like you said, has always been a very.
They could have done that with the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So there is actually a really great scene in Rebels
I
where
loved Rebels. That was so good.
I couldn't watch. I don't know. I couldn't watch it. I've seen bits and pieces.
I struggled to
but
sit down and watch it just because it has a lot of those childish like little like
It's like
antics and
90%
and
kid
jokes and
show,
stuff. Like I
and-
mean, you gotta know what you're sitting down and watching before you watch it. And I didn't realize what it was when I sat down and tried to watch it. But I think if I tried again, I could probably sit down and do it. But the first time I sat down and like,
I tell
actually
you what,
loaded
you
it
want to
up-
watch an episode or after the podcast?
No, I don't have time.
So, with Rebels, when I first saw it, I was like, that looks childish as hell. The lightsabers look thin and pathetic. I don't
That
like
was
it.
going back to the classic art.
So,
style.
yeah, and I love that. I think that that's cool now that I know that. And that's kind of one of those things where it's like, you need to know things.
What they did to
before
Anakin in that
criticizing
show,
things.
though, is atrocious.
Yeah. But so when I finally did watch it, like 2 years into it, I'm like, all right, fine, I'll watch it because I've already burned through the Clone Wars 3 times. And I just wanted more content at that point, so I was like, fuck it. So I watched it, and with that mindset already, like, ugh, this is gonna be childish, it was mind-blowing. There are things introduced in that show that if you haven't seen the show, you've missed out on a lot of really big introductions.
Okay.
And I think that made a wonderful way to like lighten it for the kids, because that's what Disney's trying to do, is bring the kids back into Star Wars so that we can grow up with it just like our parents did. I mean, how old are you?
19.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Jesus. How old are you?
20.
You had to think that hard about it?
I'm not as young as I used to be.
Okay.
It's been
I'm
a
31.
it's been a very long it's been a very long
So-
2 years.
So my point here is, though, like, your parents got to... Well, shit, I don't even...
Yeah, no, my parents grew up with
your
Star Wars.
parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad
So-
didn't like the films.
So your parents got to grow up with Star Wars. We grew up with Star Wars because of our parents.
Mhm.
But now, like, the next generations are getting to the point, like, there are people my age that have never seen a Star Wars movie, which saddens me to the
Yeah.
core. But because of that, now Disney's like, okay, let's bring the kids back in. Have you guys seen Resistance?
Yep.
I have not.
You saw Resistance, but
Yeah.
you won't watch Rebels?
I don't know.
Resistance, the little kid one. The, like, it's a spaceport where they're racing.
I watched 2 episodes of it. I wouldn't
Did
say
you
I've seen
really?
it, but yeah.
It's actually really good.
It's not that bad, yeah.
I liked it a lot. But it's one of those things where it's for really young kids. My
Yeah.
4 and 5-year-old are all about it, and I'm living for it because now I know I can show them Rebels. I can show them Clone Wars, and there's so much content out that you don't have to do it in timeline for whatever
No.
reason. Everyone's like, do it in timeline. Why? So I can watch something for a month straight and do nothing with my life? Like,
Yeah.
And then, oh shit,
That
I got
sounds
another
awesome,
movie to
but-
watch.
And I think the way they've done it with the movies is a part of the reason that the younger generation isn't as involved with Star Wars. So like with my parents' generation, you have the original trilogy. You know, you go up until I think 1997, 98 was when the last of the 3 came out.
Mhm.
And then in early 2000s, you have the prequels. So you have episode 1, 2, and 3. And that's when I was born, and when I was growing up with Star Wars, I had those movies to watch, and also kind of like with Clone
it
Wars,
was
and
like
that
the
kind of stuff
80s.
as well.
87 or something like
87.
that was
Return
of the Jedi.
Yeah,
And then 2001 was Phantom Menace.
right.
You said 97.
For the last one, the third one.
Jesus, were you born for Phantom Menace?
No, because it came out in 21 or 01,
Damn it.
not 21.
It came out in 99.
That's so weird.
Phantom Menace? No, Phantom Menace
No.
was
01.
01.
I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
Guarantee it.
Could have sworn it was
Because I
99.
looked just like Anakin from that movie the time it came out.
Nice.
It was so weird.
That is
People
true.
in
Yeah, no.
grocery stores. You're that kid. I'm like, I'm not from The Sixth Sense or Phantom Menace. Leave me alone.
Yeah. But yeah, no, going back to what I was saying, is you have those, like, they're individual storylines,
99.
but they
99,
fucking
bitch.
way. No way.
Wow. Okay.
I'm
well,
pissed.
they
May
tie
19th,
into each other.
1999. Hell yeah.
All right. Well, we were wrong. You're right. Eat shit. Anywho,
Nothing we have said has any merit at this point.
well, you know, whatever. But yeah, no. So like, you have like individual storylines within each trilogy.
Yeah.
And you
What?
don't have to know what's going on before you watch each trilogy.
Yeah.
But with the newest trilogy, like, if you haven't ever watched Star Wars before, there's going to be points where you don't know what the fuck's going
That
on.
is a very good point.
And we had that with Marcos,
Yeah, I guess that is true.
one of our other co-hosts that we had on last week.
All these kids like, why does it matter that old guy just got killed?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Everyone, all
Why-
the adults in the
what the fuck's
theater.
going on with this lightsaber? Why does this lightsaber have like genocide attached to it? You know,
Yeah.
like fucking what?
Why does my dad keep referring to it as the Youngling Slayer 5000?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Because that's what it is.
if this is your first exposure to Star Wars, like, you're not gonna know what the fuck's going on.
I do hate that they broke
is
the
very
Youngling
fair.
Slayer in this film.
I think that's another reason why the sequels are as bad as they are, is because it's not its own storyline.
It's kinda-
it ties too much into.
It's
A New
kind of
Hope
like
to the point where you can't have one without the other.
it's kind of like what's happening to the MCU, where like 5 years ago, I could go watch any MCU movie and not really have to worry about seeing the next one.
Oh, yeah.
And like I could just watch Captain America because I liked Captain America, and if I didn't care about Thor, I didn't have to see it. And if I wanted to see Iron Man, I could see that.
If you wanted to watch Captain America and not the rest, you were wrong anyway.
Track.
I like Iron Man. I actually really love Iron Man 3.
I just
It's
hate
an
Captain
unpopular
America.
opinion, but I love Iron Man 3. Captain America, I really, I don't know. I like Captain America. I love Spider-Man. Thor, sometimes.
Oh, I love the Thor one.
He's in the comics. He's cool. I don't necessarily like him in these movies, but all that aside, I could just watch whatever. Guardians was cool. I could just watch them.
How do you not like Thor? Like, I'm no man muncher or anything, but delicious. What the fuck?
And $20.
Like 20, but yeah, there we go.
My mom was a very big fan of Thor, so that was part of it.
Okay,
not
fair enough.
the comic, not the film. Just Chris Hemsworth. No, yeah, that's the right Chris. She was a very big fan of him and talked about him in Oil and other things.
Oil.
And yeah, I don't
Liam's
really
better.
feel like. Yeah, if we're gonna talk about like really good looking men.
Are we gonna have like a whole podcast on that at one point?
We definitely could.
We could just deliciously. we put Adam
Delicious
Driver. We put Adam Driver. He's the exact middle because
Adam
mid.
Driver is mid, and then we have
See,
like.
And then Danny
And again,
DeVito
I'm
at
not
the
munching
top.
man meat, so my opinion might be pretty shit on this.
Oh, yeah,
but
no,
I think
no,
Adam
that's-
Driver is pretty gross
Yeah, I agree.
visually.
I don't know, but there's people out there who just want more.
Yeah.
Had to throw that one back in there, but I could just watch any of going back to what I was saying. I could literally just watch any of these movies, not care about what was happening. But now, and I remember this was something that they said when they started with the Disney Plus. Oh, you don't have to watch any of these shows. But now, like, did any of y'all watch Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Bullshit?
Nope.
I like that. What do you
I
gotta-
liked the film too.
Okay.
But you also had to watch WandaVision in order to like get a grasp of what was happening.
I see what you're saying, and it is nice to have anthologies that can tie in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't be solely dependent upon enjoying a story, because like Cowboy Bebop is one of the flawless shows that I've like one of the few shows that I've seen that me personally I think it's flawless. And there are some episodes where like you can watch just the ending and that be the only thing you've ever seen from that show, but it feels like a complete story.
So,
And you can, but like you watch the entirety of that show and it is that much better. But you could also just throw on any random episode, I feel like, and be like, okay, that was pretty great. And yeah, I don't know.
so society today has become so engrossed in their instant gratification that that the shorter you make something, the better, which is why TikTok has blown up the way it has. And as someone with ADHD, that stuff is geared toward me.
Yeah.
With that said, as an intellectual, as I like to think of myself as, I really enjoy really well-written things that you sort of do have to invest time in. Like, Game of Thrones, The Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
What was that one with James Frazier? The, Outlander?
Outlander sounds right.
Yeah. So, like, these things, and they all have things in these types of shows, like the just completely gratuitous sex that was completely, it's just not necessary. But, those shows are so well written that for someone who wants to be challenged, things like that I think are very appealing. Whereas if I just want to watch something for an hour and a half that I'm gonna be like, holy shit, my mind is blown, I might just rip a bong and watch some DC movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I definitely get what you're saying, where like it's nice to have things that do stand alone on their own. But it's also extremely hard to write something that will stand alone on its own and be able to tie into something else as well.
And you run into that problem a lot with big, expansive universes like Star Wars. Like, you can't have as big of a universe as it has and just write one standalone movie. I mean, you can, like with like Rogue One and Solo, but those are still going to tie into different movies. So like, you wouldn't understand the significance of having Lando there unless you've seen the original trilogy. And you're gonna run into that problem no matter what.
I still have yet to see Solo.
It's so good, so good. I love Donald Glover as Lando, and I hope he gets a Lando show.
I love Donald Glover. Him in Community is just the best.
And he plays. I am a Donald Glover fanboy, and I will stand by that.
So Star Wars, the fandom. I'm gonna preface this with Star Wars, the fandom is ADHD, which is why they like to argue with one another all the time.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not like nobody hates each other; they just get like emotional about it. But the fandom seems to hate Solo, that movie. I loved it.
I thought it was one of the better ones.
Yeah, give me more Han Solo. We all loved Han Solo.
Sounds like,
and I don't even know the guy's. I don't remember the guy's name, but he played Solo really well.
Yeah, I don't remember that kid's name either.
But I'd like to see more of him as well.
I love it. You know the dice that he has?
Yeah,
I have that in my car.
That's fucking sick.
It was like $5, man.
Hell yeah!
I decked my car out like with all Star Wars stuff. When we go to leave, I'll have to show you. It's pretty cool because like you can get a bunch of cool Star Wars stuff for your vehicle now that's super cheap. And I have a Toyota, so I bought a Toyota emblem that's Toyota with Yoda ears.
Hell yeah!
It just doesn't fit anywhere on mine, unfortunately. But no, man, Solo was amazing. You got to watch that. It's very good. It gives you a lot of good backstory and where his name came from, because that's not his name.
Yeah,
his name's
spoiler alert.
Jeff.
Oh no, we don't know. Nobody knows what his name is.
Cool. But like, we were talking about this a little bit. I think we were talking about it actually on the last week's video game episode, which I'm sorry everybody, we recorded like it was like a 2-hour video of us playing Force Unleashed and Force Unleashed 2.
We played Force Unleashed 1 and 2 both, and did it get corrupted?
So I have the videos and I have the audio. I put them together in our video editing thing, and then it was like a 9 gigabyte file, so it was taking forever to like upload, or actually just to export the two of them together. And then the second it was like done exporting, it like just stopped. And so then I went to log in like the next day and like exported again while I was at work. I was just gonna have it in the background while I was working and whatnot, and then it just like completely logged me out and I couldn't back in, so I had to log in and I didn't have it, so I'd have to start from scratch.
What we may have to do with it being that big of a file is we'll have to split it up into 1 and 2.
Well, I was trying to do that, but I just it's like, I guess trying to figure out where.
That's the only way I can think of making that smaller. But we can deal with that later.
To what? To zip it?
Not to zip it, but to split it up into two parts. So we play both Unleashed 1 and Unleashed 2.
Why can't we zip the file?
What is zipping?
It's where you compress it.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, the only reason it's exporting it, which is the problem, because it takes like.
Well, could we zip the?
You could zip and then export.
Yeah.
I don't have internet here, so that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Hey, get into the 20th century, will you?
All right, so we had internet at my house in Texas,
now?
and then we moved here, and so where I live, they provide internet here. They provide internet here. I live right in the middle of that, and even like getting pizza delivered. I feel like this comes up every other week on the podcast.
Probably.
It really
you
does.
Can't get pizza. Listen, so you are out in the boonies, bro. What the fuck?
Okay, so we they've told us they've delivered before, and they're like, technically you're like a minute and a half outside of our like zone that we can do this, but
Then I'll tip $1.50 more.
but like pretty much we're like, so, and they're like, well, you all seem pretty cool, so I mean we'll do it, but like
You just gotta get the
technically-
delivery guy that's a stoner.
they're like, technically, it's like, well, technically, we can go to somewhere else and get pizza, and they're like, well, let's not be rational. Or let's not
slow
be-
down.
Yeah, it's like,
Hold there, bud.
yeah, but yeah, so that's where I live. So that being said, I'm looking into Wi-Fi, and we got mutual friend Bryce. We got him trying to get internet out here. So it's
Bro,
all in
can't
the
you
works.
just like
move?
well
You can get satellite internet damn near anywhere. It just sucks.
hold on, you gotta talk to your neighbor, right? Strike a deal with your neighbor where you're going to pay a little bit to them so that they get a little bit better of a service and they get a signal booster. It's not like these walls are cinder block walls.
Yeah.
You might need 2 signal boosters. You are kind of far apart.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. But
Hey, they have solar, by the way. I think you guys need some.
well, if you'd like to sponsor this video,
You can
talk
go ahead
with
and plug
folks.
your company if you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have to.
listeners.
I'm gonna have my my guys at G3
So
get into contact with you about that and see what we can do.
Yeah.
G3 Solar, the only installer worth talking to.
Yeah, that is 100% true. We're not getting paid for this ad yet, I don't think, but we'll
I know.
we'll
Watch
work
me
out.
get sued by my own company for this. They're like, listen, we don't do Star Wars, okay?
They're
down,
like,
Frazier.
if you were talking about Nazis on a podcast, who gives a shit?
I mean, we were.
But all right, if you were talking about Adolf Hitler, you were talking about racism, who cares? But you were talking about Star Wars, and our company is just very anti-Star Wars.
I
and
probably should say that nothing said on this show reflects the views of G3 Solar.
There you go.
There,
That's
now
going to be
we're-
like
now
the
we're
running
protected.
joke within this
Right.
podcast. Just nothing said on this podcast has any meaning.
Well, and the rest of the managers that I work with, all the canvassing leaders,
Yeah.
are going to be getting a link to this too. So they're
Sweet.
Gonna get to
they're gonna
shout out
listen
to
to
Mel Hardy and
Hell yeah.
Skylar Morton
their addresses and social security numbers are.
as follows.
Good times. But yeah,
times, good times.
I brought up Rebels earlier briefly, and we kind of got derailed and just started talking about Rebels and kid shows and stuff.
Well, we're Americans. We love rebels. So.
Oh yeah. But I wanted to bring up, because we were talking about like the samurai and sword fighting in Ahsoka and all that. And the reason I brought up Rebels is one of the few shots that I like, or scenes or bits from that show that I like. And again, I haven't seen all of it, but one of the bits that I like is Obi-Wan and Maul. They're on the planet of Tatooine, and they
their last interaction.
break out lightsabers. And the first thing Obi-Wan does is his traditional Clone Wars stance, where he holds his saber behind the right side of his head, and he takes the 2 fingers of his left hand and he holds them forward. I love that stance. It's so random and awkward, and I love it. And then he actually breaks from that kind of formation and moves into the more standard Alec Guinness, more samurai-esque stance that he does. And it's kind of in that in-between period of episode 3 and episode 4. And I love that.
It felt more Qui-Gon Jinn to me
Yeah.
in
Yes.
that moment.
So
Instead of him fighting Maul like he's always done,
Exactly.
it was the Force fighting Maul.
And I can't remember. I think it was the voice actor who played Obi-Wan in Rebels. He said that that's the whole like concept. Like that was intentional. It was to be switching from this flamboyant and like kind of outgoing Clone Wars Obi-Wan to the more centered and respectful and like older Obi-Wan to his roots, to Qui-Gon Jinn, to throw Darth Maul off of his game because he sees the Qui-Gon Jinn stance and he's like, oh, I got this. I beat this before. I know what I'm doing, and that pulls, arrogance into it, and that pulls Obi-Wan into a better position.
I also love that, like, Qui-Gon Jinn, going back to the can't saying names, Qui-Gon Jinn. One thing I loved about him in episode 1 is how he is kind of like, because he's kind of that, like, what is it, a gray Jedi?
Mm-hmm.
He's
sorry, I
don't know, kind of
a gray Jedi. He is a true Jedi.
okay.
So this is where
The factions.
I think some really cool things come in with Phantom Menace that a lot of people just went way over their head. So Qui-Gon Jinn is the true Jedi. The true Jedi wants what the Force wants, not what the arrogant, dogmatic Jedi of that time want. So they became this police force of a sort for the Republic.
Right.
And listen, everybody needs funding. I get that. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you can't
Compromise your morals and
exactly. You have to, if you are this righteous being that enacts the will of the Force, then that's what you have to do. You can't just be like, I enact the will of the Force, and then
on
go be some
Fridays.
douchey guy who just is protecting the Senate, which literally becomes your downfall because you're too... It's not that the dark side clouded the Force. It's that you had become too goddamn arrogant
dependent.
to see past your own desires.
Yeah.
And that's what disgusted Qui-Gon Jinn. That's why Qui-Gon Jinn had made the comment... Okay, so Obi-Wan says something about, like, if you would just listen to the council, you would be on the council.
Yeah.
He was beyond that. It wasn't about that anymore. In fact, in Clone Wars, Darth Tyrannus, otherwise known as Count Dooku, talks about how him and Qui-Gon were in conversation about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Leaving the Jedi Order, which blew my mind and gave me chills, and I'm getting chills now just talking about it because I just love this that much. But he saw how wrong the council was, but he couldn't do anything about it. So what could he do? And this is what I love about Qui-Gon, him being a stoic.
Yeah.
He controlled only what he could control,
Yeah.
which, for a proper Jedi, was nothing. He gave control to the Force and just did what the Force wanted.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is I'm kind of glad you worded it way better than I could have. The bit in between the laser walls during the fight on Naboo,
Right.
there is this... Somebody made this point, and I think I've even made this point a couple of times. Why can't they just do that little zippy zappy thing, you know, that they do at the very beginning of the movie, and then we never see it again, where they just zoom and they just like move really quickly. I don't know what it's called, but like the little dash.
The Force speed, yeah.
Why
Yeah.
can't they just do that in between? And then I noticed something, and it's because Obi-Wan, like Anakin absorbed a lot of information and also picked up some of the habits from Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka picked up the habits from Anakin. And there's a lot of like this kind of almost game of telephone that has happened between all three of them, because Ahsoka is very different from who Obi-Wan is, and then Anakin was very different from like the both of them. But I think all three of them have their strengths, and all three of them have their own little like rights and wrongs in their arguments and philosophies. But one thing that I noticed about that is, instead of doing that little Force dash, or instead of trying to get to Maul, the one thing that Qui-Gon does is he kneels and he meditates for a second.
And why does he do that?
Because he's, like you said, he's that true Jedi. He's not trying to rush things. He's just
So,
breathing, meditating.
do you guys know anything about the Tao or Taoism?
A little bit.
So it's the way of the flow, right? It's kind of like an athlete who you've practiced it so many times that when you are on the basketball court or you're on the soccer field or whatever you do, you're not thinking about, oh, I should do this, I should do that, because that would take too long. You just now know what to do.
Right.
So a true Jedi is going to be in the Tao. They're in the flow during a battle, but a battle can be very disruptive, and we've heard time and time again from Jedi Masters that the dark side can cloud your sight or your judgment, your precognition. So if that's the case, in fact, here, let me back up a little bit more to Palpatine
Okay.
using a Force scream. You know how when he jumps at the Jedi who are trying to arrest him, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, that's him doing a Force scream, which if you've played KOTOR, you know that is a Sith ability that is to strike fear in an enemy. It almost paralyzes people who are weaker.
I like that
Things
one
like that.
from Lego Star Wars, the little duh.
I didn't play any of those. I'm not gonna lie. I
never
don't take
played
any
a
of the
Lego
Lego
Star
Star
Wars?
Wars stuff seriously. Yeah, sorry.
Rightfully so.
We'll
rightfully
fix
so.
that.
But so Maul is a very intimidating being in and of himself. He doesn't
Right.
need a Force scream to be freaking people out. Now, even someone like Qui-Gon is going to be shaken by it. And I agree with you. I love that he sat down and meditated. Whereas he's meditating and Maul is seething, which if you had played Knights, so not KOTOR, but the MMO one, if you are a
Old Republic. I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
So if you're a Sith, you can do something called seething, which just it like focuses you. It makes you a little bit more powerful for a short time. It's like a buff. So they both were doing what they should do respectively for their side that they are on. Whereas Obi-Wan is young, he's impatient, he's just like really getting into it and losing focus. So I definitely love that. But with all that said, why do they not dash past it? So Obi-Wan has already lost focus. He is
Right.
completely unfocused in that scene. So when you are in a fight, there's a lot of focus that goes into using a Force ability, which is why you don't see people slash and lightning and then pull something towards someone while you slash again.
So the Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of focus that goes into that.
I
So
think you see a little bit of that in the Anakin Dooku fight, but those are both very powerful Force users. So it's
and
again.
and even there though, there's some fighting, stop, lightning,
Right.
some fighting. Oh, there's a pause. Sweet, now I can use a Force ability. There has to be that sort of like break so that you could refocus and use
Let the
ability.
stamina
Right.
bar charge up for a second, and
Right.
yeah.
So I think that's why there's not a whole lot of Force dashing in that instance. It's just Obi-Wan being like, I gotta get there, and not
And the
thinking
budget
of
ran
what
out.
you actually need to do.
Right.
Now, Qui-Gon's already there, so
Yeah.
there's no reason for him to be Force dashing. It starts to close, and Qui-Gon goes, oh, you know what? I'm gonna take a second. Because I am unfocused. He has
Check my
won the
mental
mental
Snapchat.
battle. Let me get back into focus, and then get stabbed, because that's what had to happen for the plot. But
Yeah.
it's tragic.
so, but that was him succumbing to the Force.
Right.
What needed to happen at that point? If Qui-Gon had been the master of Anakin, would Anakin have gone down the wrong path?
No.
No. Obi-Wan wasn't ready to teach Anakin at that time, somebody who had that
Yeah.
much turmoil to begin with.
Yeah.
So he had to die. So the Force willed him to die, and he said, okay, that's fine. Because Obi-Wan is going to use that traumatic event to overcome and grow, and it's what the Force wanted. He has no idea that the Force wants Obi-Wan to train him, because he knows he's not going to do it right,
Right.
Yeah.
which ultimately leads to balance finally coming
Yeah.
to the universe with the destruction of Palpatine.
Until
Exactly.
that's retconned and Palpatine is back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Until JJ plays with his
but-
action figures.
But
Yeah,
we can always
exactly.
talk about that next week.
The other thing that, going back to the sequels.
His couch does suck. I was wrong.
Yeah.
No? Whoa.
It's lumpy.
It is a little lumpy.
But-
You are
some
in
spots.
probably the most saddened spot
Oh
right
yeah.
now.
Like this chair right here. It's got a, like there's a spring.
Yeah.
right
It's like 3 inches higher than that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brooke and Dayton.
Yeah, no, you're good. So, going back
Do you want to try the one throw pillow?
I am good.
No,
I'm
let me try the
A-okay.
throw pillow.
Nah,
It will help.
nah.
If
They-
nobody's
they
using
took-
that, I'll take that.
They,
chilling.
The armrest is just in my ribs, dude.
So-
I'm getting too old for this. I can't like
So-
sit still.
so they took all the throw pillows and forgot about that one, and they were like, "Hey, here you go." Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
That's what you were saying.
But yeah, going back to the sequels, is you see that it's completely unbalanced because the only Jedi you actually have is Luke, but then you have all these dark side
Wannabes.
users. So you have Kylo, you have Snoke, you have
Wait, returning back
Even
to
Ray.
what?
sequels.
Oh yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Even Ray a little bit.
Rey
She's not a
is
Jedi.
She's not a Jedi.
Yeah,
she's
but-
just
Force wielder.
she's
She's a
force
force
sensitive,
wielder, but
and
she uses a little bit dark side. Not even intentionally.
Her emotions are what drive a lot of her
True.
force abilities, so I
True.
would agree with that for sure.
yeah.
And remember, she can magically do the most powerful, one of the most powerful dark side abilities, just flippantly in the next film.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, which one?
Force lightning. That's like a very
She
advanced.
uses force lightning in the next one.
Yeah.
What?
Does she?
See, that's how bad that movie
Does she
is. That
use
you
force
forget.
lightning or does she use electric judgment?
Force lightning.
Do you know the difference?
What is the difference?
So Plo Koon uses electric judgment and gets in trouble from it quite a few times from the Jedi Council.
Sounds about right.
But electric judgment cannot kill. It can kind of like maim someone. It's like the weakest form of...
No, this blows up like a Star Cruiser. Like,
What?
yeah.
I don't know what.
We'll talk about this next week.
Okay, that entire movie's been retconned in my mind, I guess.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
I'm sad I
probably.
remember this. But go ahead.
But I completely forgot what the fuck I was talking
Imbalance.
about. Oh yeah, so you see like a stark imbalance of any sort of force users other than Luke. And then I guess you have force sensitives, but they're not light or dark necessarily. They make up the neutral side of the force.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have all of these really powerful dark side users like, you know, Snoke, Darth Sidious, Kylo, and then I'm sure there's a handful of other ones. But like, what happened to the balance that Luke brought? You know, with killing Vader, or I guess turning Vader back to the light side, and then killing Palpatine. You know, he brought balance back to the Force. But what happened to that? Like, I mean, sure, the First Order came back into power, but like, where did all the light side users go? What happened to all the other people that Luke was training? What happened to all that stuff, you know?
So the ones that Luke was training probably are just kind of like in hiding. Their training is not complete anyways. It was
Right.
all just kind of like, hey, everything crumbled down, and everyone in that probably is like, you know what, fuck this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But think of, like, imagine you have a popsicle stick on a string, okay, and everything's
Okay.
balanced right now, but
Right.
it's raining. At some point, it's gonna tip, right?
Right.
So there always has to be something to rebalance the force. So did you watch the Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the planet called with the brother and the sister and the father?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I love that.
So there was always an imbalance that then balanced out and imbalanced, and that was the waning and the or the waxing and the waning. It's the day and the night.
Right.
There's always gonna be an imbalance, and then it rebalances, and
It's
an
like a
imbalance and
yin-yang type of thing.
rebalance. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't imagine you had balance. Imagine there was no good.
That would be boring.
There was no bad. you'd have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So when things are good, you have no idea that they're good because things never really get bad.
Okay.
So that's why you have to have good and bad.
Fair.
So are you
But
saying...
to the extreme of where there's only one light side user that's prominent.
So say you have an entire Jedi Order with 1,000 different people, right?
Right.
And then so if one person makes a decision, how much does that tip the scales?
Not much.
But if you only have one or two,
Okay.
so now the scales get tipped dramatically.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean though.
And at that point, you only have like 2 or 3 bad guys. You get like one really good guy and like 12 decent good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're sort of balanced, but it's kind of, it starts to wane before it waxes.
I forgot that little kid was force sensitive at the end of the film.
Yeah, what
when
do
he
you
grabs that
guys think
broom.
about that? Like where the kid just has force powers.
Oh, I love it. It's, again, that was Ryan Johnson being like, you could be anybody and have the Force. And then JJ said, no, you have to have a magic grandpa.
Yeah. No.
I saw, because like I said, so I literally fell asleep through part of this movie, and then I was like, oh shit, I was supposed to watch this. And I woke up and I saw like the last like portion of it, and I forgot about this completely, that there was just a kid. And I was like, I feel like that's wrong, but I also think that's coming from the like kind of preconceived notion of like thinking that somebody has to be important to have powers or the Force or whatever, or maybe I missed the point of these films. But like I was also like, I don't know, I don't hate that idea of just these kids, but it did kind of feel a little tacked on in Disney and like,
Well,
But it's the good side of Disney, where
Yeah.
it's like, you can be whoever you want. And you see that everywhere in Star Wars, where like,
you see it everywhere in Disney.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like, where it doesn't matter who you are, you can be force sensitive.
Yeah.
Because like that's a big part of the Jedi Order is, you're, I don't know, some sources I see it's like they're kidnapping kids. Others it's like, okay, they're force sensitive, you're saving them. I guess it's a difference of perspective on that aspect.
It's kidnapping.
Well, yeah.
what is it? Have y'all ever seen Robot Chicken?
Yeah.
There's that great bit where they're talking about from a certain point of view, and they're like, yeah, no, and Luke is like, yeah, no, Darth Vader didn't kill my father. He literally is my father, and you guys have known this information. And then Yoda and Obi-Wan break out into this song and dance, and they're like, oh, but from a certain point of view. And then they're like, well, now that I know this, and now that I know that Leia's my sister, they're like, yeah, about that. It's always fun.
You also run into that same kind of thing with Kylo and Rey.
Yeah, so
They're cousins. If you're assuming that she's a Skywalker, they're cousins.
Well, not even, but even if she's a Palpatine, because technically, if you're going into the comics and all that,
I love where you're going with this. I made this argument, and everyone's like, "You're wrong."
Okay, so Palpatine actually impregnated Anakin's mom with midichlorians, but he was the one
from like
who,
7 planets away.
Yeah, but he was the one who was like, I don't know how this works, but maybe he just like is thinking, and then he's like using the Force and rubbing one off. But I don't know. Somehow,
Thank God they left the details out.
Yeah,
it was
God.
via.
That would be very like.
It's via Sith alchemy.
Yeah.
by the
Okay.
way.
But
if you look
he's-
into like the Plagueis comic or novels.
Okay, but either way, he impregnates what's her name, Shmi Skywalker, and so technically Palpatine is Anakin's dad. So now you look down that bloodline. So you have Palpatine, dad. Then you have Anakin, and Anakin beget Leia and Luke, right? And
Which
so
is
then
the
Leia,
start of the Skywalker power from our knowledge, by the way.
Right.
So then you have Leia, who beget Ben Swallow, which, by the way, Ben Swallow, that's always
Solo?
great. Swallow.
Why is he Oh, because he's...
yeah, that.
He's not swole though. He's built like a fucking box.
Yeah. Either way, I just love that. I forgot
Big-ass
about
shoulders.
that. I was like,
Honestly.
Decent
oh
muscle.
my god, I forgot that he strips in this movie, and that is pretty great. just that one bit, I can't unsee that now. But yeah, it's like, it's laughably bad because it's just in there. But before I lose my topic on this, so now you think, okay, well, somewhere down the bloodline, according to this movie, and according to, or not this movie, but the next movie, somewhere in there, she's a Palpatine. So either Palpatine had actual relations with people, or he did the same thing and he midi-chlorianed over.
Okay, so Palpatine had a child.
Okay.
That child,
Had another
I'm losing
child.
it. So yeah, that, because it's her grandpa technically. So Palpatine's child had married somebody else. They had a baby. The whole reason that they left her on Jakku was because Palpatine wanted Rey, and they were like, "Oh shit, we have to get her the hell away."
From this guy. So
That makes more
So
sense.
Palpatine is her grandpa. But like I said, if you break down the bloodline, then Palpatine is Kylo Ren's
The
great grandpa.
Metachlorian line. I think it's more the Metachlorian line.
Yeah.
Okay, but either way, they're still
still related.
They're still related in some way. So all I'm saying is this is
We're gonna get a three-eyed human Jedi.
Yeah, now we're gonna have some sort of, they're gonna have like a, they're gonna be like, they're gonna look like an orc.
it's good.
The underbite with the fucking.
The Force is with you.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Ooh, magic incest.
But yeah, Star Wars just if there's one thing Star Wars can't seem to get away from, it's the incest.
Because everybody's got to have a magic grandpa. Know how to say a magic grandpa.
Alabama.
I feel like I have to give credit to this YouTuber at this point.
Uh-oh.
Because now I'm not even the only one saying Magic Grandpa, so hold on.
Magic.
It also was a wonderful video. Like, in preparation for this, if I could pull my head out of my ass, I'll find it. Here we go. How the fuck do you say that? It's...
Sometimes YouTube names are hard to.
So the video was revisiting The Last Jedi and why it's alright. The YouTuber is Shafrilla's Productions. SCHAFFRILLAS.
Oh, Shafrillis.
Shafrillis.
I've seen this guy. He's got
Oh, he's very good.
Yep.
He also does a video on.
Sounds young, but he's very intelligent.
He does a video on Ratatouille, I think, and why it's the magnum opus of Pixar, because
It's a wonderful movie.
it's one of the best out of Pixar, but it's like it's not the best, but it's the one that changes the game of Pixar and what it could be. Which I'd love to talk about Ratatouille one of these days, but like,
I'm down to watch that movie 6 times and then
Hell
do
yeah.
this.
okay, so we got we got Han Solo, we got Scott Pilgrim, we got Ratatouille,
Toy Story.
my neighbor, Toy Story. These just keep getting added to the list. We're
Alright.
trying to. The
We're
funny
gonna
thing,
turn to a movie podcast.
it's terrible, but we're trying so hard to not. But there's
What is
so
this
many-
podcast anyway?
Yeah, it is. It just is.
This podcast,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Like our first episode with Marcos was just 2 amigos and a gringo.
We just sat and talked shit just for an hour and a half straight. Speaking of which, how long have we been rolling?
We could
It's
probably
8:05 right now.
All right,
I think I
okay.
got like one last,
Let's go ahead and
Yeah.
hit on that last point, and then let's go ahead and call it.
which this is a great one to end on. Kylo Ren, Edgelord. Kylo is a monster. He
Okay.
says that at some point, and I just thought it was
He
funny.
says he's a monster.
Yeah, because
course.
we were talking about how he's mid and how girls with daddy issues.
That's what we're gonna end
Kylo
on?
Ren. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Do you have a better ending point somewhere in your essay?
Well, okay, so that's what I am looking at. So, in the essay, there's a section for just characters. It's not even like paragraphs and stuff. It's just straight up like here, I'll pick a short one. Vice Admiral Amelin Holdo, cause fuck Leia.
Yep.
It's basically the whole reason she's in this. Like,
Yeah.
you did not need her. You could have done all of that with Leia.
Well, wasn't it past when the actor for when Carrie Fisher passed?
What does Star Wars care? They've brought back everybody who's
That is
died,
True, but I guess
which I think
it's
is super disrespectful.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But like, I guess from a CGI and budget perspective, that's less CGI that you have to do on somebody's face and all that stuff. That's the only thing that I can see as to why they would do with Hobbs instead of Fisher.
Or Rose Tico.
Rose.
Let's just give the useless Finn a love interest.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
Who?
There's no reason.
Yeah.
Why didn't Finn die in this movie?
It still confuses me as to why they had Rose.
He was trying to
Instead of Rey.
hit whatever was. He looked at Ray and he was like, "I'm gonna try and hit that."
Yeah.
Like from the get go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he should have died in the movie. Instead, they were like, "Oh, let's give him a love interest," and then JJ was like, "Interracial love interest? No,
Absolutely not.
Stick another black lady in there so he can have a proper love interest." It's like,
I forgot that he has a third interest in the next
I
movie.
forgot to.
Yeah, this kid's a 9-year-old. He doesn't know what he wants.
God damn.
And then like Poe Dameron, so I have for him, could have been the new Han Solo. Instead, he is an ace pilot with, spelled that wrong. Great skill. But like many characteristic jocks, has not a brain cell in his head.
Yep.
They could have made him
We're good.
like bad boy scoundrel.
We're good. We're great. 2 and 2 is 8.
What?
It's a thing. I'll tell you later.
Oh, okay. But instead, like, they could have made him the bad boy scoundrel without making him an insubordinate fool.
Yeah.
That should have been locked up for his insubordination that led to many under his command dying
Yep.
for his own pride. There's
There's a
simply
lot of
nothing
dead
cool about
people.
that. Like, I don't know. I just have a few things about all these characters that Rey I wrote too much to. I don't even want to go into it. Rey could have been such a great character, but they Mary Sue'd her, and that you have all these people that are like, "Ooh, she's not a Mary Sue." Bro, she had...
The literal definition.
Luke had 4 years from start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And
she
even
got a year with someone who never even finished Jedi training, Leia.
So the
Yeah.
funny thing about that though is Luke, he even at the end of his 4 years, he's still not that great.
Yeah.
Like
No.
in Return of the Jedi, he's still not that great. He still gets captured, and then like even his fight against
on purpose.
Vader, what?
He got captured on purpose.
Right. I mean, partially, but I mean, he also I don't necessarily think he could have just
Gotten out of that
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, that's right.
but like his fight with Vader, for half of it, he's like hiding, and then the other half, he finally does have like a little bit of emotion, and then the music bumps up because once again the soundtrack is great. But once that music kicks on, he like even his technique, he's not doing anything impressive. He's literally just whacking down on his dad's. Probably just he's like, oh fuck, I forgot to plug in this morning.
Well, and this is where those fight scenes from those older movies are so great, because it wasn't that Luke beat Darth Vader because he was better than him. He beat him because he got to his core emotionally. And that's where he lost focus. He starts losing to this kid who's just flinging a baton around like he has no idea what he's doing, and then changes him from the inside. If he didn't change him from the inside, Vader would have swept the floor with his son and then laughed about it.
Oh yeah, and that's why you see Luke hiding from Vader for so much, is because he knows that he can't beat Vader in a one-on-one fight. He has to get into his head.
Yeah. So I think what we've learned today is that these movies are so much better than we anticipated.
They still
or
suck.
this movie.
Yeah, this movie in particular is okay.
This movie is
Best of the three, for sure.
Yeah,
and a lot of times this is the most hated one. Like this one, and because a lot of people will say, "Oh, the fan service of 9 is great," and then I don't know. We'll have to. That'll be. I'm very maybe not excited, but very intrigued to see what happens next week. because this has been very fun going back and rewatching these. But after we're done with next week, we got to talk about something else. This is way too much Star Wars.
I swear to God, next week's. Fuck that movie. It was awful.
Oh yeah, no, it's just gonna be us shitting on the entire movie.
No
tried
intellectual conversation.
I tried to not. I tried to not swear on this podcast, but yeah, there's these are not easy to talk about.
To be continued next week,
of course. So
but yeah, this has been a distinguished conversation. Tune in next week. We'll be talking about episode 9. I don't know if Frazier will be back on possibly next week. We'll see.
I'm in.
All right.
Hopefully Marcos will be back.
Hopefully Marcos, which he'll have 2 movies to catch up. So do that, Marcos. Okay, sound good. And then hopefully we'll also get guest star Dayton on. So
Hopefully that'll be 5 people. I don't know.
5 people. Well, so we got.
Do we have enough mics for 5 people? Is the next
He's in Colorado.
Okay. Oh yeah. That
So
works.
we'll just hook him up to that bad boy, and then we'll be talking on the phone. Somebody will have to definitely bring some headphones, Frazier and Marcos, and then maybe I need. Hold up. So
It'll be 4 people here, and
so
then
there are
one
4
person. on the
people.
phone.
Okay, so I might need another adapter. So
Are the listeners gonna listen to all this?
Yeah.
Portion? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
so
we always
sorry.
do this. Yeah.
Yeah, no. At this point, if people are still
Everyone's
listening,
already tuned out.
Yeah, probably.
yeah, they're probably just listening out of pity.
That's one thing that I noticed. We need to get better about our endings. Like we'll say, like, all right, yeah, tune in next week. We'll finish it up, and then we'll continue on for another.
Does anyone
fucking 10
know where
minutes.
we're from?
Yes, Kansas.
From which? Well, they
Well,
know
that's
Kansas.
a Kansan for you. Okay, well, goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what though? Oh,
Yeah.
Aunt
It's like
Jerry.
it's,
Oh,
so
Uncle
if someone
Jerry.
offers you a beer. Someone offers you a beer.
This has been a distinguished conversation. Tune in next week.
This has been one of our better.
Bye.